When that report is ready, it will be handed over to President Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga. And that report, we shall make public. We're going to publish it so that people can read it and see the kind of recommendations are being made by the BPI team. Once people have made their comments, then we will gather all those comments, and then on the basis of that, we will formulate the referendum question. And that will be published in the form of a bill, which will then be taken to the people. So what we have been trying to do is very consultative. Now you cannot just wake up one morning and go to your office and begin to draft amendment to the Constitution, and then purport to have collected signatures around the country. Now you ask people, who were these people who signed the so-called Punguza Mizigo initiative? There's supposed to be 1 million people.
People are telling us to wait for Building Bridges initiative. What process is Building Bridges initiative following to seek to amend the Constitution of Kenya? When you look at all the 9 points, terms of reference for the Building Bridges initiative, none of them directs them to look for views to amend the Constitution.
All right, so there's a clear disagreement between which program should go on. Of course, Punguza Mizigo is following its constitutional route, the process that is provided for in the Constitution. And Raila Odinga, for the first time, is telling us that the Building Bridges initiative will yield to a referendum bill. Are we surprised, or that has always been the plan? Mheshimiwa Pio.
Firstly, let me say this, that when you choose to amend the Constitution under Article 257, that is a popular initiative, you must be very careful. Because that article gives you options, 2 options, to frame what you want in general terms before you draft a bill subsequent to people giving their views. Or go ahead and do a bill from the word go. Our friends from Punguza, whatever, went ahead and
Punguza Mizigo
went ahead and purported to have drafted a bill. Okay. Now, once you do that, once you draft a bill, you are in a straitjacket, because the Constitution is so clear that that bill cannot be amended. It cannot be amended. It has to be passed the way it is or rejected wholesome. That's where we are. So, from where we sit, we have got 2 problems. One is the fact that that process that ended up into the so-called bill by the Punguza Mizigo people was not consultative, and therefore it does not represent the views of the people. That is one.
But it is constitutional.
Yeah,
wouldn't the signatures mean participation?
I am being very careful here, yeah, because no one has verified those signatures. It's really contentious.
IBC did.
It's really contentious.
IBC did.
Well, you know very well that this matter went to court, and the court didn't make a determination for whatever reasons. But the second issue we have, even assuming that the process that was followed by the Punguza Mizigo people was correct, we have got serious issues with the proposals they are making in that bill. The amendments to the Constitution that they're proposing in that bill of theirs.
What exactly do you have a problem with?
I've got one of them is clearly they are purporting to elevate the Senate to become the upper house, whilst leaving the provisions of Article 94, 95, and 96 intact. Articles that deal with the functions of the various houses of the parliament. And then how do you elevate a house to become superior, yet the functions remain intact?
Clearly, Opio has not read the bill.
That is one.
But I would advise Opio to read the bill.
You know, my friend hasn't been in the parliament, so he doesn't understand.
No, I don't need to be in parliament to understand the law.
Fred, we'll come to you in just a bit. We'll come to you in just a bit.
I'm sure he's finishing in the next few seconds.
I'm dealing with a veteran legislator.
Carry on.
Two.
That is in question, Adrian.
2 is the issue of representation of the people.
Reduction of counties.
No, the constituencies. You can't wake up one morning and say, reduce the constituencies from 290 to 130 something, 140 something. Yet, you know the history of this country. That the peoples of this country have fought over the years to get equitable representation, including of those who are marginalized. What they are proposing is taking us back to 3 decades ago.
So, Fred, as Secretary General for Third Way Alliance,
Yes.
No, it's okay. We'll give you another chance.
Very quickly, just to get his response as well. But one quickly, the 1.2 million signatures that you say that you did collect, whose signatures are those for? Have they been verified?
Let's start from the Constitution. That is the supreme law. When you are going through a popular initiative, let me correct him. First of all, you can go through a general suggestion. And the Constitution says those general suggestions will be formulated into a bill. Now, when we went out, we asked Kenyans, what would you want to be amended? We started by 3 points. We ended up, by the time we were doing, I think, the 15th county, we ended up with 16 points, which we later summarized into 7 thematic areas. You know why they are not aware? Because they were busy shaking hands. Number 2, in the Constitution of Kenya, Article 57, when you are going through a popular initiative, the IBC do not have a depository of signatures. The IBC have a depository of voter detail. And that's why Article 257, sub-Article 4 says IEBC shall verify whether they are registered voters, not whether they have signed. Number 4, what is the value of representation? The value of representation is in resources. Today, in his constituency, there's a word called Ugunja West. We are saying
it's not there.
That whatever it is,
there's a word.
You belong to a ward. In his ward, whatever, in his ward, whether it is Ugunja or whatever it is, in his ward, there's a ward. It belongs to a ward. In that ward, what we would want to see, we would want to see people equal. You cannot say that by reducing the counties or abolishing, you are delimiting the gains that we have made. While in every county, there's a ward, and the people of Kenya are in the ward. That's why in Article 6, the territories of Kenya are divided into counties, and counties have got those wards.
Okay.
The most important person is that person that is in the ward. And that's why we want to increase county allocation, protect those allocations, and use that ward as the unit of accelerated development. So that in Ugunja, there's a hospital, there's road, there's school. In that locality, you don't need to travel from Ugunja to come and get screening in Kenyatta, while you can do that. Yeah. Lastly, let me finish. It was my point. Let me finish.
All right, Fred. I need to
the other thing is,
I'll give another chance.
Let me just finish. The reason why they are bitter, and you can see the bitterness, is because while people were working, they were busy shaking hands. But you cannot shake hands for long.
All right, Fred. Mheshimiwa Nyoro, so Raila Odinga says that the country should wait for the BBI report, which you yield to, after the consultations, it will yield to a referendum bill. Is that why we need to go and ignore Punguza Mizigo, despite the fact that it's ongoing based on the Constitution?
I have a problem with both, but a bigger problem, of course, with BBI. Basically, first of all, because, and I'll be very forthright, there was no clamor. When you want to change the Constitution, you have to base that change on something. Correct. There is no Kenyan who needed any change. It is just someone who, of course, wanted that change for an elitist self-interest.
So for you, BBI is more of a selfish act?
I want to be very direct without missing words. That BBI, if you look at the biggest proposition and what they are recommending, it is purely about expanding the executive. And when you talk about expanding the executive, they are, of course, pegging it. You have seen the points that they have laid, the 9 points.
They've been saying all over.
They've been saying all over, even Raila Odinga himself. If they are basing that in terms of inclusivity, Sam, honestly speaking, does expanding the executive bring about any solution in so far as inclusivity is concerned? To me, no. Why am I saying no? Because we are in a political process. We are in a democratic country. If we are democratic, for example, if we are enlarging the executive to include 3 more seats, then you'll have, of course, the president, the deputy, prime minister, and 2 deputies. Are we saying we are not going to have an election? I don't think so. We're still going to have an election.
So, Honorable, what if BBI says we're not going to go for a referendum? Because everyone seems to be waiting for BBI to say we're going for a referendum. Will that surprise you if we don't go for a referendum?
I think the clouds are up there. We can clearly see this was designed even before they started. But this is the point that I had. The Dama, if you go to elections in 2022, having expanded the executive, we will have 5 guys on this side and 5 guys on this side, because still we'll have to go through an election. it does not cure the issue of going through a democratic election.
Okay.
So we are going to have something similar to what we had in 2007, because ODM already had the 5 positions. We still fought. But also, because I believe we don't have a lot of time, I have a problem with us basing the whole thing, including Punguza Mizigo, on representation. Because let's use figures. When we talk about representation, Kenya, we read a budget of 2.8 trillion this financial year. Out of that, only 0.69 is going to the judiciary. Only 1.45% is going to the entire parliament, including our salaries, development in parliament, etc., etc.
Okay.
Only 11.28% is going to the shareable revenue in terms of counties. So when you talk about, even if you collapse the whole parliament and collapse all the MCAs, you will not have Punguza Mizigo in this country.
Of course, parliament is necessary. No, Fred.
The burden is out.
Fred, not now. And Senator Leda Molekina will come back with you after the break, so that you listen also to what Deputy President William Ruto has had to say about this proposal.
Ndio wanatusumbua na siasa mingi ya kusema tubadilishe katiba pande hii, sijui tubadilishe katiba pande hiyo, sijui tufanye ile, tufanye ile. Hiyo mambo yote ya kubadilishana mambo ya katiba, wananchi have the final say. Wananchi ndio wataamua mwisho. Na wananchi wanajua ni nini kinawafaa na ni nini hakiwafai.
There can never be any other greater impunity in this country than what we are seeing from the leaders of this country. Because kama hiyo wao umekula kiapo ya kulinda katiba, na katiba inasema itabadilishwa namna hii, heshimu katiba, lenda mbunge ikuye na initiative yake ama ya popular, lakini kama kuna mawazo kama hayo, tumia ile njia imeandikwa. Kama sio impunity, sijui impunity ni nini nyingine.
All right, so that's the Deputy President and also the Senator, Deputy President William Ruto, and then the Senator of Meru Mithika Linturi. And I want to begin with you, Leda Molekina. You are an ODM member, and your party leader has said that after the BBI report, then a bill will be framed. I want to exactly understand what mechanism will you use under the Constitution to introduce it to a referendum sort of debate.
I'll put
is
it
it
this
popular,
way.
parliamentary? Which one is it?
I'll put it this way. First of all, my colleague here, the Honorable Apio, and I made it very clear. The biggest problem that we're seeing in terms of the Punguza Mizigo is that Punguza Mizigo is crafted in a way which I consider utopian. A state where everything is perfect and realistic. You know, this is not Kenya.
Ideal.
Ideal. You know, this is not Kenya. We have to be realistic. In the sense that if Punguza Mizigo really wanted Kenyans to buy into their argument, they would have traversed this county, met this country, met people like the Masai El Chamos, who have been fighting for many years to be able to get representation and sought their views. What the BBI has done is that they have gone across the entire country, sought views from the people before they draft a bill. You know, they want to be able to say, these are the things that these are the views we are picking from you. You've asked a very good question. What process are we going to take? The Honorable, the Prime Minister, the former Prime Minister Raila Amolo Odinga was very categorical, and the President, that this body, the BBI team, will go across the country, take the views from the Kenyans, then we subject it into the same process like the Bomas draft, bringing those issues before we draft a bill. I have a big problem when I hear my brother here, Didi Nyoro, saying this is about expanding the executive. It may not be expanding the executive. It's an issue of inclusivity. Let me finalize.
Yeah, right.
Bring it into the issue of the people. Let the people put in their input. Is this what you said?
So you say the Punguza is more of a utopia sort of
more
bill.
of a utopian.
So does that mean our laws in Kenya are designed to fill democracy?
No. You know, democracy is not a very good thing. I can tell you that. You know, I would rather we don't even have democracy, because everybody thinks they can do whatever they want to do. Let me tell you what we intend to do.
It's interesting that you should say
I'm very honest. I'm very honest. There's a level where, you know, if you leave out to everybody, tomorrow I can come up with another popular initiative, and I collect signatures and I take it to IEBC.
So let me take you back to what you're talking about.
I'll lose my line of thoughts.
No, before you do. So a bill comes, what mode will it follow? Is it introduction through Parliament, or is it the popular initiative that should go to the county assemblies?
In our bill, I would definitely hope that we can be able to go through the popular initiative in two ways. We've already collected the views. We bring the people and say, these are the things that you brought up. These are the issues that you said. In Narok, this is what you want to come up in terms of the change. And I agree. We definitely need change. We need change because of divisiveness in this country. You cannot now come up with a Punguza initiative, a Punguza Mizigo initiative, and then mandate people to say, this is it. Yet the Constitution is very clear. The bill cannot be amended.
But the county assemblies have the mandate to reject or approve
it. Listen, yes, which is a waste of public money. Because the moment you now subject people to go through a bill, you know, and then you take it into a referendum, because if it's not allowed, it's considered into a referendum. So, if it fails, you're spending people's money.
Senator, there's a worry amongst Kenyans that what if BBI turns out from being a unity initiative to more of a political campaign?
Let me tell you what BBI will do before it is reduced into a bill. It will go to the people, okay?
It's a political party.
Not a political party. It will go through to the people through a process like the Bomas draft. You know, when we went to the Bomas conference and people were able to discuss, because in fact, this country, the best process we've ever had in terms of trying to change all the ills that have been able to take us back was the Bomas conference. So we want to go back there. So this is not about, it is not about one person versus the other person. It is about bringing all these things together. And what Raila and Uhuru are doing is trying to unite this country once and for all.
Let me just come in, and I hope you give me enough time to pass across my point. Firstly, it must be understood that the BBI is a process that was initiated by both President Uhuru Kenyatta and my own party leader, Raila Odinga. Up to this point, I am not aware if there's anybody in Jubilee who is disputing Uhuru Kenyatta's leadership of Jubilee.
It appears
so he is the leader of the Jubilee party, which is the party in power. He is the one who gazetted the BBI process in the Kenya Gazette. Raila Odinga signed the memorandum with Uhuru Kenyatta as the leader of ODM and leader of NASA. Up to this point in time, no one within the NASA formation has come out to challenge that process. So on that premise, therefore, BBI is a fairly representative process. But that is one. Two, the BBI was not set up to look at the Constitution per se, or only. If you look at the 9-point agenda, or the 9-point issue in the memorandum that was signed by both President Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga, they are more than issues of the Constitution. I want to get into it because of time. And therefore, the BBI team has gone around the country seeking the views of the people. Okay. They have finalized the process of seeking the views of the people. They are retreating to do a report. No one for sure, as we speak, knows what the report will be talking about.
Definitely.
Okay? And if the report suggests that there is a need to change certain aspects of the Constitution, okay, it will then provide a way forward. I suppose it will be either through the Parliament or popular. Yes.
So, Honorable Nyoro, these early campaigns that we are seeing, sadly, unfortunately, on the ground, is it on purpose to undermine BBI?
Yes. I have not seen any early campaigns.
Really? Even from your own team?
I have never seen any early campaigns. But to go back to the topic that we have, first of all, Opio, when you talk about going around the country collecting views, which Kenyans actually clamored for any change of the Constitution? That is number one. Number two, which kind of views are collected in five-star hotels? Because every time I have seen BBI go around the country, they have actually been collecting those views in five-star hotels.
That is not true. Absolutely not true.
Just let him finish.
Let me finish. The problem bedeviling this country, of course, number one is inclusivity. But also there are other elephants in the room. Number one, of course, being corruption. Number two, of course, being unemployment, which is rampant, but also ethnicity, tribalism.
And what is the solution?
The solution, I may not have the clear solution, but one thing I know for sure is that the solution is not expanding the executive, but also, Opio, you may have listened to your party leader just the other day, and it got me by surprise, because I know our President Uhuru Kenyatta, very kind-hearted, and I'm sure he means well for this country. And I'm sure also he meant well when he, of course, came up with the handshake. But I was surprised to hear your party leader insinuate that that was a strategy, one of his ways, one of his routes to reaching Canaan. And I hope.
How sure are you?
What you said that in Turkana. It was aired on Citizen TV. I listened. You have the clips.
What exactly
he said clearly. I'm sure you listened. He said there are many ways, and that was a strategy for him to take his people to Canaan. So I want to imagine, and I want to hope that the murderings and the issues that we are being treated
in your
on.
understanding, what is Canaan?
Yeah.
Canaan to me, of course, is gaining power. There is no other Canaan when you talk about politics. It's gaining power.
We need to close this conversation. Yes. But Fred, what's your response? Of course, they are not very satisfied. They are not very happy with the process that was followed by Punguza Mizigo initiative. But eventually, they hope to end up at the same process. So how far are you, and how does this political talk affect your processes?
It doesn't affect our process in any way. In fact, it strengthens our process because we believe that constitutional amendment is not a political competition.
Really?
While the process is political, we are not here to compete.
So if BBI says that we're not going to go for a referendum come October when they release their report?
That's their wish. That's their wish. But we follow the constitution. If they don't want to go for referendum, Kenyans want to go for referendum that will make them equal. They've talked about inclusivity, expanding the executive. Listen, the true and raw meaning of inclusivity is when every Kenyan in this country gets the equitable share of the national resources. And that is the tenet of the constitution. It is not about when 5 people, 6 people eat on behalf of the community. No, that is not inclusivity. That is an inclusivity lie. Number 3, they have talked about public money. The county assemblies, where the bill is today, they have got a constitutional mandate to sit, and one of their sittings is to debate bills. This is part of the bill that they'll be debating. And I want to assure them, we are not competing them, we don't want to compete them. We shall wait for the BBI to give whatever report they have. If they want a referendum, we shall debate the referendum the same way Kenyans are critiquing and debating our referendum today. But the most important thing that Kenyans should be worried about, they should be worried about leaders who promised to deliver services to them, but when that opportunity to deliver service come in a constitutional manner, they reject it.
Fred.
These are the people that this country do not need.
Let me help him. Let me help him.
He's not helping me. He doesn't need to.
Or before you do what you want to do, let's take a look at some of the tweets that are coming in, then you have your closing remarks. What you've been saying at Citizen TV Kenya, at Sam Kituko, this is Francis Kigondo. How on earth does the Punguza Mizigo tell us to send money to the wards? Who will take care of this money at ward level? Or shall we create mini governors? Just a moment. Or shall we create mini governors at ward level? We already have a problem with 47 governors. How are we to deal with over 1,000 new centers?
All right. Still sticking to Twitter. Kennedy, you say, I'm sorry to say this, but the Punguza Mizigo 2019 bill fronted by a court genuinely contains fractional portion of goodies. But my fear is Mr. Court and the Third Way Alliance are using it to measure the depth of their political clout.
Yes. Let me say finally, Engineer Lazaro, leaders should have advocated for peace and amendment of some areas in our constitution through consensus. Referendum, census, huduma, and forthcoming election would be too expensive for the country.
Let me just say one or two things.
Sorry, Vicky Jakababa, we have seen what Punguza Mizigo entails. We need to be patient and see what BBI will bring on the table. Until then, we should stop with all this anticipation.
You see, Baba.
let me just
in closing,
it can't be
much more day.
You know, I heard my friend here say that they are in a political contest. I want to remind him that the constitutional making process, including amendments, is a very political process.
But not a competition.
And what the problem we have in the current setup of our constitution is that it allows even entities which are essentially NGOs to purport to be political parties.
What do you mean NGOs?
Yeah, I can prove that at given time. But then, more importantly, prove what we're going to do. The courts have allowed the Punguza Mizigo bill to be debated in the assemblies. We have appealed to the county assemblies as a political party, as ODM.
Your assemblies or the...
Listen, my friend.
Just a moment.
Just an honor in listening. We have appealed to the county assemblies all over the country, 47 of them, to reject that bill for the reasons we have given. But more importantly, even in the unlikely event that 24 or more pass it, we are going to reject it in the subsequent referendum.
Okay. All right,
No,
you'll have
just,
the time to do that, yes.
quickly, in my closing remarks, I think what Punguza Mizigo should have been doing, and I think my good friend here should learn some quick, PR and sales techniques. You don't force people, you try to convince them. And when you're wrong, you try to learn so that maybe next time you can do a better job. Okay. So I think they should spend more time with that. I am 100% in support of the BBI. I want to see a situation whereby in this country, a small community of the Maasais in Baringo can feel included and they can have their representation in parliament. Okay. Number 3, I want a situation whereby we can really collapse all these counties and make them maybe 13 counties. A good example would be Narok, Kajiado, and Taita Taveta. Make it one county, have one government.
But they're too expensive.
Okay? It doesn't matter. There are states in the country, when you look at Nigeria, when you look at the US, there are states which are big. It's a matter of, you can create something called a legislative assembly, which includes people from all these 3 counties.
Okay.
Number 3, very, very important, is that we need to be realistic. Where are we going? In terms of this issue of the division of revenue bill, I want to appeal to the executive to let Parliament carry out its constitutional mandate so that we can be able to give services to our people, and then if possible we can amend the PFM Act, come up with about 12 Appropriations Act, clearly state some as mandatory appropriation acts, such that if we have a government shutdown, services will continue. Because as it is right now, I support what the Chief Justice said. There's no law that even sends 50% to the county government.
Has Narok paid salaries?
The Attorney General, not the Chief Justice.
The Attorney General, sorry. Right. So what is there is this, because
thank you, Senator.
The challenge is, let me finish. The challenge is,
I wish you
is
could.
That we, you're wasting time telling me I wish you could, and I would have already finished. Thank you. Go on.
Sam, number 1, I think the biggest problem we have in this country is not inclusivity. It is the perpetual way of losers not accepting defeat. We have seen it from 2007 up to now. Number 2, the kind of country that we have, of course, when we go to referenda, it will not be a matter of popular will. It will be a matter of which group is more organized and will already be serving the interest of the most organized elite. Because the reason I'm saying this, if you look, and I support Ledama when he talks about democracy, because clearly we have not reaped any fruits of democracy in our country. Because if you look at the 19th century, the clamor of democracy in the 19th century, and the countries where democracy got entrenched, they used a certain path. And the best path for us to use in terms of democracy is, of course, when, first of all, we achieve economic growth. Because economic growth then leads to social mobilization based on classes, working, people who are working, and not about any ethnicity. And of course, throughout the cycle, we have a good country. But as it is now, we have a state, yes, but the country called Kenya in terms of a nation, there is none. And that will not be cured by referenda. It will be cured by us as Kenyans, number 1, entrenching patriotism so that we stop seeing Opio as a Aluo, Ledama as a Masai, because even as we go through this referendum, I can tell you, tribes have already voted. Where Raila Odinga is going, of course, this tribe has already voted.
So your final word, Fred?
My final word is ridiculous. Punguza Mizigo Bill 2019 has arrived. It is here with us. Kenyans love it. The MCAs before them, they will pass it. And just to respond on my friend who was talking about entities that are NGOs. If there are entities that are NGOs, then the biggest NGO is orange in color. The last one, the petitions that we have been seeing, for sure we can now confirm that those petitions were sponsored, those frivolous petitions were sponsored by certain people. We want to urge the public, Punguza Mizigo is the real deal. Don't go for fishing expeditions in a bill that we have not seen, in a report that we have not seen, that we will not see, but in a report that is, its end game is to give power to a certain, to few individuals.
To the voters, asante sana.
You talk about NGOs, but the last time I checked, the Third Way Alliance, the ODM, the Jubilee Party were all registered political parties, but all the same, you have a right to say what you want to say.
You know what, I hope
thank you so much for coming, Mheshimiwa. No, Senator Ledama. Thank you, Mheshimiwa Opiyo Ndai, Senator Ledama Olekina from Narok. Mheshimiwa Ndindi Nyoro from Kiharu constituency and Secretary General of the Third Way Alliance, a political party, Fred Okongo. Thank you so much for making time for us.